Dust swirled across the dry desert plain as rancher Elijah Carter rode hard toward the sound of distant screams. The setting sun cast a blazing orange light over the land, turning every shadow into a threat. Elijah wasn't a man who involved himself in other people's wars, but the cries weren't those of soldiers. They were cries of women. He found them near Devil's Ridge, two towering Apache sisters, bound to wooden stakes by outlaws. Their wrists were raw from struggling, their long black hair tangled with blood and sand. The outlaws laughed as they circled them, betting on who would shoot first to test the women's strength. Elijah gripped the reins tighter. He had lost a wife once. He would not watch innocent women die while he still drew breath. Without warning, he fired a single shot into the sky. The outlaws stumbled, startled. "That's enough." Elijah's voice rolled like thunder. "Untie them or face me." The leader sneered. "Walk away, rancher. This ain't your affair." Elijah's blue eyes never wavered. "It is now." In one swift motion, he fired again, this time grazing the leader's hat clean off his head. The outlaws hesitated, fear replacing bravado. One by one, they mounted their horses and fled. Elijah dismounted and stepped toward the women. Though fierce and proud, neither spoke. The taller sister held his gaze, breathing heavily, a silent question in her dark eyes. Why would a white rancher risk his life for Apache women? Elijah simply said, "You're safe now." The taller sister stood first, towering over Elijah by nearly a head. Her eyes, sharp as flint, studied him with the quiet ferocity of a warrior. The younger sister, limping slightly, reached for her sibling's arm for balance. Elijah saw the pain she was hiding behind her stoic expression. "You can rest at my ranch until sunrise," Elijah said firmly. "No one will touch you under my roof." The younger sister's gaze softened. But the taller one, clearly the elder, stepped forward, placing her hand over her chest. "I am Nehima, daughter of Chief Gray Eagle," she said in a low, dignified tone. "Our people do not accept mercy as charity. We repay life with life." Elijah nodded. "I didn't help you for repayment." Nehima studied him again, as if trying to understand a language spoken without words. As night fell, Elijah led them toward his ranch. Coyotes howled under the moonlight, but no one spoke. At the ridge overlooking his land, the sisters paused in awe. The vast stretch of green pastures, the glimmering creek, and the distant herd, it was paradise in the middle of a harsh land. Inside the ranch house, Nehima unexpectedly knelt on one knee. Elijah froze. "In our tribe," she said, voice steady, "kneeling means we have offered you our lives. You are now under our protection until death." Before Elijah could respond, the thunder of distant drums rolled across the hills. Nehima's face paled. "My people are coming," she whispered. "And they will not understand why we are here." The night air trembled with the pulse of Apache war drums echoing over the valley. Elijah stepped onto the porch, lantern in hand, his jaw tightening. Nehima and her sister stood behind him like shadows cast by fate. "They came sooner than expected," Nehima murmured, her voice steady, though her fingers gripped the doorframe. Torches flickered in the distance as warriors on horseback emerged from the darkness, their silhouettes sharp against the moonlit horizon. At the front rode Chief Gray Eagle, known across the territories as a man who never hesitated to wage war in protection of his tribe. The riders halted at the gate. The chief dismounted, his gaze fixed on Elijah, not with hostility, but with the cold restraint of a man weighing judgment. "You took my daughters into your home," the chief said, his deep voice rolling like distant thunder. "In our law, that is an act of great consequence." Elijah nodded calmly. "They were in danger. I offered them safety." The chief studied him for a long, silent moment. Then he turned to his daughters. Nehima stepped forward, head high. "Father, this man saved our lives. I have bound my life to his in honor." A ripple of shock passed through the warriors. The younger sister added, "I too claim this bond. Our lives are his to command." Chief Gray Eagle's eyes widened. For the first time in years, his stoic mask cracked. He turned back to Elijah. "Then you have taken not only my daughters," he said slowly, "but also my tribe's future." The air went still. "What will you do with such power, rancher?" The warriors formed a circle, their faces lit by torchlight, waiting for the chief's command. Every eye was fixed on Elijah, the lone rancher who now stood between peace and war. Nehima's hand brushed against his. It was the first time she'd ever touched him willingly. "Do not refuse us," she whispered. "If you do, my father's pride will demand blood." Chief Gray Eagle stepped forward, his face unreadable. Elijah Stone, he said, using the rancher's full name for the first time, 2 of my daughters have spoken the ancient vow. Our ancestors recognize this as binding unless rejected. If you accept, you become blood of the Apache. Gasps erupted from the warriors. Elijah looked from the chief to the sisters. In their eyes he saw not just gratitude, but hope. A hope that stretched beyond personal fate, toward the protection of their entire tribe. Slowly, Elijah removed his hat, holding it over his heart. I did not save your daughters for reward, he said. But I will not turn away from a duty placed in my hands by God or fate. If the tribe will have me as protector, then I accept. The chief's eyes glistened, not with anger, but something deeper. Respect. With a solemn nod, he raised both hands to the sky. Tonight, Chief Gray Eagle declared, the Apache gained not a son-in-law, but a brother. The warriors began to pound their spears into the earth, chanting Elijah's name in the Apache tongue. As the flames rose higher, Nehema whispered, "You have changed our destiny." Elijah stared at the sky, realizing he had changed his own. At dawn, the desert was silent, except for the distant cry of an eagle circling above the canyon. Elijah stood at the edge of his ranch, watching the Apache camp come alive with song and celebration. The air carried a new energy, one of unity, not fear. Nehema and Tala approached him, their expressions soft with pride. In the night, they had placed traditional beaded sashes across his shoulders, marking him as chosen protector of their people. Elijah had expected doubt, but as the warriors passed him, each bowed his head in acknowledgement. He was no longer an outsider. Chief Gray Eagle emerged from the council tent. "You have done what no white man has done," he said. "Not by force, but by honor." Moments later, a messenger galloped in with news. A hostile band from another territory was preparing to raid both the ranch and the Apache village. In years past, this would have meant war. But not today. Elijah mounted his horse, flanked on both sides by Nehema and Tala, no longer just daughters of a chief, but warriors standing at his side. The Apache riders formed behind him. Ranch hands joined too, tipping their hats in solidarity. That morning, 2 worlds rode as one. As the sun rose, its light turned the sky to gold. Elijah looked at the sisters, then ahead toward the horizon. Not as a lone rancher, but as a leader of nations. And with that, the legend of Elijah Stone, the man who united the West, was born.